This is a lesson on the literature component for the Form 5 and it is on the novel Dear Mr. Kilmer. The focus for the lesson today is the characters in the novel. Mrs. Hanson. Mrs. Hanson is an English teacher and she wore bifocals. Mrs. Hanson is a responsible or creative person. Evidence 1. The school-only English teacher who was strict but obviously cared a lot about what she was teaching. 2. At the beginning of the new school year, she announced that the class would put on a patriotic program to help sell Liberty bonds which helped finance the war. 3. She suggested that the girl who won the best essay would play the role of Lady Liberty, while the boy with the best essay would be Doughboy. 4. She announced that she would post the two winners' essay in class for everyone to enjoy. Mrs. Hanson is also encouraging. Evidence 1. Despite the negative responses from her students, she encouraged them to sign a card for the Shermans to show their sympathy. 2. Mrs. Hanson smiled encouragingly when Richard offered to send a card to the Shermans. She praised him for having some integrity. 3. When she read Richard's poems, she had something nice to say about each one. She helped him choose one to send to Mr. Kilmer. 3. When she read Richard's poem, she had something nice to say about each one. She helped him choose one to send to Mr. Kilmer. 4. She encouraged Richard to share his poem with his class. Mrs. Hanson is also knowledgeable. Evidence: she informed the class that according to the New York Times, Mr. Kilmer had volunteered to fight in the war. She also told the class about other great poets who stood up for things they believed in, like Lord Byron and Walt Whitman, who both fought in wars. Mrs. Hanson is also concerned or kind. Evidence: when she heard that Hannah's parents' tavern was vandalized, she encouraged her class to sign a card for them to show their regret for the family. Second, when her students refused to sign the card, Mrs. Hanson defended Hannah's family, saying that they were upstanding members of the community and they had lived in the United States for many years. 3. She tried to get her students to sign the card but expressed her disappointment when Richard was the only one who signed it. Let's now look at the next character, Mr. Joyce Kilmer. Mr. Joyce Kilmer worked for the New York Times. He was a famous poet and he published a book, Trees and Other Poems. He was a father of 5 and a sergeant in the American Armed Forces. Let's look at Mr. Kilmer's characteristic. Mr. Kilmer was brave, courageous, or patriotic. Evidence: he volunteered for service in the army to fight for his country. He admitted it was very hard to train to be a soldier. Although he was afraid, he had to overcome his fears. He believed in President Wilson's calling of the war to end wars. He volunteered to fight so young men would not need to fight and die in many more wars. He was also caring or kind. He wrote poems about living things. And he was honest. He admitted his fear of going to war and his sadness that he could not be home for Christmas. Mr. Kilmer was also encouraging. There are many evidence for this. Number 1, he wrote to Richard and empathized with him. He encouraged Richard to be brave and to overcome his fears. He asked Richard to share his poems with those he knew. Number 2, he asked Richard to write to him again and send him one of his poems. 3, Mr. Kilmer signed his letter to Richard as your fellow poet. This shows he acknowledged Richard's ability to write poetry and could identify with him. 4, Mr. Kilmer told Richard his poems were very fine and impressive. He encouraged him to continue writing as he might become a published verse maker in future. 5. He claimed he enjoyed reading Richard's poems and letters. We have come to the end on our discussion for the characters in Dear Mr. Kilmer. I hope you will benefit from this video, and then best of luck in your coming exam. That's all. Thank you, and signing off, I'm Teacher Gan. Bye bye.